shouldn't have buried me. I'm not dead.
For some reason, I have a huge soft spot for the fourth entry into the three biggest horror franchises of the 80s. Friday the 13th Part 4, The Final Chapter, is my favorite Jason Voorhees movie. Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, featuring an awesome performance by Daniel Harris, is an incredible underrated entry into that franchise. And then we have this one, A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. Most fans of the Nightmare movies, Fredheads if you will, consider the first and the third movie to be the two best of the series, and by all means they're absolutely great and I love them both dearly. But I will not agree that the fourth movie is a big step down from the third film, or perhaps not even a step down at all. The Dream Master opens up with the three remaining teenagers from the third film, Joey, Kincaid, and Kristen, this time played by Tuesday Knight and not Patricia Arquette, who cannot return for this one as was pregnant at the time, and waiting for anyone or anything was not an option for New Line Cinema, as they wanted to push these movies out every year in order to maximize the Freddy Krueger craze that was going on at the time. The teenagers are adapting back into a normal life and leaving the terrible events behind them, but Kristen is still having some bad dreams and are afraid that the dream killer is still not put to rest for good. I'm going to do some heavy spoilers here, so if you haven't seen the film before for some reason, then you have now been warned. Around the 40-minute mark, the three kids from the third film have all been killed off by Freddy, and when he gets Kristen, he taunts her and gets her to invite a new friend into the dream, as she was the last child of Elm Street. Kristen accidentally brings in her friend Alice, a quiet and shy girl who seeks solace in her daydreaming.
You know, you are one major league hunk.
Thanks, Alice.
Since there are no more children left from Elm Street, Freddy now has his eyes set on Alice in order for her to bring him new, fresh victims. Production on this fourth Freddy movie started with their highest budget so far of $5 million and a filming schedule of 40 days, directly after the success of the third film, which really brought the Freddy Krueger character into mainstream America. Helming the fourth entry to the franchise was the Finland-born director Renny Harlin, who had just come off doing a smaller horror film called Prison. He would bring hunger, enthusiasm, and a sense of fun to this production. Yeah, the story takes some easy ways out with how Freddy is brought back to life, if you can call it that, but it does work within the lore of the character, feeding off the fears of the teenagers as Kristen is still very much afraid of the guy. The ending might also seem simple for some, but it fits right in with the endings of the previous Nightmare films in my opinion. What this movie excels in is the awesome Nightmare visual effects. This movie looks great, and even with a short time frame, there was no stopping the creativity and go for it attitude that was behind this production. It goes a bit more loose structurally than the previous films, and while I understand others wanting a more engaging story, I enjoy the hell out of the surrealistic visual treats that are given here. I also think that people sadly look straight past the characters of this film. All of the teenagers here are good people, and the gang is made up of all sorts of people, from the shy and innocent Alice, her outgoing and cool brother Rick, his girlfriend Kristen, which was a hot blonde chick, although with a terrible past, the workout-loving Debbie, the nerdy Sheila, and the jock Dan. All of them might sound like stereotypes, which they are, but they are not negative characters which we were starting to get used to by the time this movie was released. Even though Heather Langenkamp's Nancy from the first and third movie will forever be looked at as a great heroine of the franchise, I'd say that Alice from this and the fifth movie gives Nancy a run for the money. Her arc brings her from being a shy, daydreaming girl into a young adult who has found a personality, becoming tough, but still having a huge heart. Some might complain that Freddy Krueger has become a bit too funny at this point, and I can see that argument, although that had already started on the third film. I have no trouble with how he was portrayed in this film. As a kid from the 80s that grew up with it, this is simply the Freddy Krueger that I always remembered and loved. The death scenes in this one ranges from being imaginative to being a bit lazy. The way Debbie goes out being turned into a bug is just nasty, while the death of Rick seemed like a last minute idea, which it basically was since they had to change his death scene during filming due to budgetary reasons. The movie is of course very 80s, and nothing screams more 80s than the fantastic soundtrack of this film. It's obvious that the movie was geared towards the MTV generation of the time, filling you with two songs that totally captured the year of 1988. Here we get stuff like Love Kills from the Vinnie Vincent Invasion. Remember that guy from that one Kiss album where they didn't wear face paint? And of course the rocking opening song of the film, Nightmare, sung by Tuesday Knight, who had taken over the part of Kristen. When I think about why Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4 is not that greatly regarded, I can't help but think that it has to do with the great fondness fans have of the third film. There is also the idea of something becoming too popular, and the original fans feeling like they now not longer own the product, which is common with everything that enters pop culture. Nightmare on Elm Street 4 would end up being the most lucrative of the original Freddy movies, and yeah, I can see how fans of the original films would become annoyed due to the studio letting Freddy become a pop icon. It does say something about the times though that 30 years ago a child murdering character from a horror film could become so popular outside of our own horror movie culture. And gearing it towards the mainstream teens did work out nicely for New Line Cinema, as this one will become the most lucrative of the original Freddy Krueger movies, making nearly $50 million in domestic box office alone. That's numbers that I wouldn't see again before the 2003 Battle of the Giants of Freddy vs. Jason. And hey, even Robert Englund himself called it a personal favorite of his in his book Hollywood Monster. So while I won't say that the Dream Master is any better or worse than Dream Warriors, I will say that this one gives the much loved third movie a run for its money. I do recognize its flaws, but I have no trouble yelling out that I love this film. On Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master is not only a great Freddy Krueger movie, but also a great piece of 80s horror. I'm giving it a 4.5 out of 5. Am I the only one out there that love this film, or are there other Fredheads in YouTube land that appreciate this film? Or do you think I'm being blinded by pure nostalgia? Want me to review any of the other Freddy movies? Let me know in the comment section below, and as always, make sure you subscribe if you want to keep yourself updated on my future reviews. Thank you very much for watching.